When the phone rang, I hadn't expected it to be him. My uncle had drifted so far from my life that he was more memory than man. The last time I'd seen him was more than a decade ago, during a fleeting, almost awkward visit. Before that, I could count his appearances on one hand after I turned 6. It hadn't always been that way. When I was younger, we were close. He was a towering figure in my childhood, full of stories and adventures that left me in awe. But then, he simply disappeared from my life, and I had stopped asking why. So, when I heard his voice on the other end of the line, my heart skipped. "Is this you, nephew?" His voice was cracked as though it had spent years trapped in dust. "It's me," I said, unsure how to react. "I need to see you," he continued, bypassing pleasantries entirely. "I'm not well. The doctor says I don't have long." It wasn't a request. It was a plea tinged with desperation. Before I could make up an excuse, he added, "I'll pay for your flight. Please, just come." The next thing I knew, I was standing at his door. The man who opened it barely resembled the uncle I remembered. He was gaunt, with hollowed cheeks and trembling hands. His hair, once thick and peppered with grey, was now sparse and white. But his eyes, they hadn't changed. They carried the same intensity, the same fire that I remembered. "Come in," he said, pulling me into his modest, weathered ranch house. It stood on a patch of land so isolated that the closest neighbors were miles away. "We've got a lot to talk about." He set a plate of cookies on the table, the kind I used to love as a kid. I nibbled one out of politeness, but it didn't taste the same. The small talk felt hollow, like a thin crust over a boiling pot of something far more potent. And then, after an hour of skimming the surface, he plunged us into the depths. "Do you believe in monsters?" he asked, leaning forward. At first I laughed. It felt absurd. But his expression remained grave, his hands trembling slightly as they clasped the edge of the table. "I'm serious, nephew. Do you?" "I mean, not really," I replied hesitantly. "Monsters are real," he said. His voice was low, almost reverent, and I should know. I've spent a lifetime hunting them. His words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I wanted to laugh it off, but there was something about the way he said it that rooted me to my chair. He reached under the table and pulled out a rifle, its barrel gleaming even in the dim light of the room. "Do you know how to use one of these?" he asked. "Yes," I said, though I'd never fired one outside of a range. "Good," he said, standing up. "Then come with me. There's something you need to see." We loaded his truck with enough supplies to last months, food, water, and equipment. It made no sense. Where were we going? Why did we need so much? He didn't answer my questions, only shook his head and muttered, "You'll understand soon enough." As he drove, he began to talk. "Do you remember that Bigfoot sighting in our town, about 10 years ago?" I nodded. It had been the talk of the town for weeks. "Most people thought it was a hoax," he continued. "But it wasn't. Bigfoot is real. Sasquatches, Yowies, Yetis, whatever you want to call them. They've been around for centuries. The Native Americans knew about them, wrote stories about them. But we've done everything we can to erase those stories, to erase them." "What do you mean?" I asked, my stomach tightening. "They're almost gone," he said, his voice breaking. "Because of people like me." He glanced at me, his eyes glistening. "I was a Bigfoot hunter," he said. "The government recruited me after my stint in the army. Told me I'd be protecting humanity from dangerous creatures. Told me they were just animals. I believed them." He paused, gripping the wheel tighter. "They never told us why," he continued. "Why we had to kill them. Some thought it was for land. Others thought they were a threat. I have my own theory. They're smarter than us, more advanced even. That's why they had to go, because they made us look small." My mind was spinning. This couldn't be real. "You're saying the government hunted Bigfoot into near extinction?" I asked. He nodded. "There aren't many left," he said. "They've learned to hide, to communicate in ways we can't detect. But I was good at finding them. Too good." He stopped the truck in a small clearing. The trees towered around us, their branches knitting together like conspirators. He handed me the rifle and stepped out. "There's one left," he said. "I've been taking care of him, or trying to." Before I could process his words, he pulled a strange-looking flute from his pocket. They communicate through sound waves, he explained. Waves we can't hear. This flute mimics their calls. He blew into it, the sound sharp and piercing. For 10 minutes nothing happened, and then, out of the shadows, it emerged. It was 8 feet tall, covered in thick matted fur. Its face was eerily human, its eyes filled with a deep, weary intelligence. It stopped a few feet from us, its massive chest rising and falling with slow, deliberate breaths. "This is my nephew," my uncle said, his voice trembling. "He'll take care of you when I'm gone." The creature stared at me, its gaze penetrating. And then, in a voice deeper than anything I'd ever heard, it spoke. "Who is he?" I couldn't speak. My mouth was dry, my heart pounding in my chest like a drum. The sight of the creature was surreal, its words even more so. This wasn't a beast. It was intelligent, aware, and deeply unsettling. My uncle, however, seemed at ease, almost reverent in the creature's presence. "He's my family," my uncle said softly. "When I'm gone, he'll be the one to help you." The creature tilted its head slightly, studying me with eyes that seemed to bore into my soul. For a moment it looked like it might speak again, but instead it raised a hand, an enormous, fur-covered hand, with long, thick fingers, and pointed at my uncle. "You," it said, its voice like a low rumble of thunder. "Killed." I froze. The word hung in the air, heavy with accusation. My uncle nodded, his shoulders slumping as if a great weight had settled on them. "Yes," he said, "I killed your family, I won't deny it." I turned to look at him, shocked. He didn't seem afraid, if anything. He looked relieved, like he'd been waiting for this moment. "If you want to kill me," he said, his voice breaking, "I won't stop you." "What are you doing?" I asked, stepping forward, the rifle trembling in my hands. "You can't just—" "Stop," my uncle said firmly, holding up a hand. "This is my choice." The creature took a step forward, its massive frame casting a long shadow across the clearing. It raised its hand again, this time clenching it into a fist. I instinctively raised the rifle, but my uncle grabbed the barrel and pushed it down. "Don't," he said. "This isn't your fight." The creature's fist hovered in the air for what felt like an eternity. Then slowly it lowered its arm. It pointed at my uncle again, but this time its expression softened. "Family," it said, its voice quieter now, almost mournful. My uncle's face crumpled and he sank to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "All this time," he whispered, "all this time, and you still forgive me?" The creature didn't respond. Instead it turned and began walking back into the shadows. I stared after it, my mind racing. "What the hell was that?" I demanded, pulling my uncle to his feet. "That," he said, wiping his face, "is why I called you here." On the drive back, my uncle explained everything. He told me about his years hunting Bigfoot, about the horrors he had witnessed and committed. "I thought I was doing the right thing," he said, his voice heavy with regret. "But then I found him, just a baby hiding in the woods. He was crying, calling for his mother. And that's when it hit me. These weren't animals. They were people. Different, yes, but people nonetheless." He paused, gripping the wheel tightly. "I couldn't do it," he continued. "I couldn't kill him, so I took him in, raised him, tried to make up for what I'd done." "And now you want me to take over?" I asked, my voice rising. "You want me to take care of this creature?" "He's not a creature," my uncle said sharply. "He's the last of his kind, and if we don't protect him, he'll die. Do you want that on your conscience?" I didn't answer. When we returned to the ranch, my uncle showed me his plans. He had stockpiled enough supplies to last for years, had even set up a system to ensure the creature could remain hidden. "I know it's a lot to ask," he said, looking at me with pleading eyes, "but you're the only one I trust. Please, nephew, do this for me." I wanted to say no. I wanted to walk away and pretend none of this had ever happened. But the image of the creature's face, its pain, its humanity was burned into my mind. I couldn't ignore it. "All right," I said finally, "I'll do it." My uncle's face broke into a smile, and for the first time I saw a glimmer of the man I had known as a child. "Thank you," he said. "You have no idea how much this means to me." 3 months later, my uncle passed away. I was with him in his final moments, holding his hand as he took his last breath. His death hit me harder than I expected. Despite our years apart, he had always been a part of my life, a larger-than-life figure who seemed invincible. Now he was gone, and the responsibility he had passed on to me felt crushing. The first time I visited the creature on my own, I was terrified. But to my surprise, it greeted me with a nod and a single word: brother. Over the years, our relationship grew. I brought him food and supplies, and in return, he taught me things I could never have imagined. He showed me how to track animals, how to move silently through the woods, how to listen to the rhythms of nature. One day, as I was unloading supplies, I noticed something strange. Behind him stood two figures, one slightly shorter than him, the other much smaller. "You have a family?" I asked, incredulous. He nodded, a hint of pride in his eyes. "Call," he said simply. I understood. He had used his unique ability to communicate with others of his kind, bringing them together. They weren't extinct, not yet. For those who still search for Bigfoot, I have a message. Leave them alone. They've endured enough. If you ever do find one, don't try to capture it. Don't try to expose it. Just let it be. They are not the monsters we make them out to be. We are. And it's time we start making amends.